Hello everyone and welcome to another very exciting complete growing guide here on the MIgardener channel. In today's complete growing guide, I'm going to be showing you how to grow the world's smallest watermelon. No, I kid. They're not actually watermelon. Although they look identical to a watermelon, they're actually called Mexican Sour Gherkins, or as I like to call them and a lot of other people like to call them, cucamelons. And you know, ironically enough, they taste a lot like a cucumber and a melon mixed. And they look a lot like a cucumber and a watermelon. So they're a very sweet, very kind of tart and cucumber flavor going on. It's so unique. I really can't express it in words because it's sweet, it's tart, it's not bitter at all, and yeah, there's just a cool crunch. You know, the crunch is just unbelievable on these things. So I definitely recommend growing them, but I want to talk about how to grow them now, because there's a few things that make these things amazing. They are super nutrient dense, very high in vitamin K, E, and C, as well as fiber. So you get a lot of your benefits of your cucumbers only in this super small little package that's so fun to eat. It's really fun for kids, and they're no bigger than grapes. Another thing that makes cucamelons very fun to grow is the fact that if you are plagued with powdery mildew, like we are here, or if you live down south, and I know it gets very humid, and a lot of people say I can't grow a lot of my zucchinis and my cucumbers and pumpkins and stuff because I just get powdery mildew. This is not the case with cucamelons. They're extremely resilient to powdery mildew. These have been growing and are still growing and flowering and fruiting about 4 weeks after our whole entire cucumber trellis has been completely decimated by powdery mildew finally. They lasted a long time. I was actually surprised how long my cucumbers lasted, but these are still going strong. So no powdery mildew. I think that's a great thing about it. Also, another thing is pests. Pests got a couple of our cucumbers. It's not normal around here, but I know cucumbers definitely are the target for mice and other rodents and stuff like that. But these, they never bother them. and so you're not gonna have the pest problems that you have normally. Now, the first thing to talk about when growing cucamelons is sunlight. As you can see, the sun is nice and bright, and that's why I am just absolutely loving it today. So the sunlight in this garden is the sun exposure in this garden is about 7 to 11 hours in this spot of the garden. In other places, a little more like 11. Because we have a tree line that kind of comes in the early morning of really tall maple trees. And so this part of the garden gets about 7 to 11 hours of sun depending on the time of year. This time of year it gets about 7 hours. In midsummer it gets more close to 11 hours because the sun comes in a spot where there's absolutely no maple trees at all, which is great. So it gets about the same as the other gardens. So I would say between 7 and 11 hours of sun is what these get. But they're going to do just fine with between 5 and 7. So if you don't have that much sun, at least give them 5 hours and they're going to do fine. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was nutrients. These need a lot of nitrogen. They are a very fast grower, extremely vigorous viner, and so you're going to need a lot of nitrogen to support that growth. What I do is I just fertilize them like I do normally, but I give them Trifecta Plus in the spring. They've only been fertilized once and they've been fine. But I make sure to put a lot of fertilizer in so that it lasts throughout the season with those fast-acting and slow-release nutrients to give it that long, prolonged growth that is obviously required, because they fruit early and they fruit late, and they go all the way through the season and fruit late. So you're going to need a lot of nutrients for that. Now, the next thing is watering. Here in the garden, we hardly ever watered these, and that is because we used core gardening, which we talk about a lot in this channel, but also the fact these are extremely drought tolerant. These are so resistant to drought. The flavor changes a little bit when they get dried out for a long period of time. They get a little more bitter and the skin gets a little hard, but they by no means stop growing, and they don't show very many signs of drought, whereas a lot of other stuff in the garden would be suffering. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is spacing and trellising. These kind of go together, and you can definitely space them closer together because they actually grow on top of each other very well. They don't show very much signs of stress when you crowd them out. However, what I will say is that vining, you need a lot of trellis space. You need a very tall trellis. These were not tall enough, these trellises, so they ended up kind of collapsing in on themselves, which is fine. Again, they still don't show very much signs of stress because the plants themselves are very spindly. The vines on them, I can't even really get them, but the vines are very, very thin. And so, you know, they don't really crimp or break like it would have if it happened with a cucumber. The vine would crimp and it would pretty much be the end of that plant. but these can fall over on themselves, and they're kind of meant to do that, which is kind of nice. But to keep it neat and orderly, I would suggest having a minimum of a 7 to 8 foot tall trellis. And if you don't, I guess it'll be fine, but it'll look something kind of like mine, which just looks like a pile of vines, and you kind of have to sort through all the leaves to find the melons. So you know, it's something that I would stress as being important. Now I want to talk about soil type. So as far as soil type goes, again, just like the rest of the garden, they're really not very picky, and I have not noticed a big difference in soil types when growing cucamelons. We give them just a very loose, humus-rich soil, and basically just pure compost, and that's what we give them, and they do just fine. As far as soil pH goes, I probably would recommend something a little more acidic. Our soil here is around a 5.5 to a 6, so it's just very slightly acidic, which is what a lot of plants like. So we definitely give them the same soil as all the others, but it is slightly acidic. And the very last thing that I want to talk about was the temperature. Obviously, as we've already spoken, these plants are extremely resilient. We planted these out in the first of spring, and they've grown perfectly fine through the cold weather of spring. They've grown through the hot weather of summer, and they've grown all the way through all the cold nights we've had so far, and they're doing just fine. So, and with the amount of flowers that are still on there, I'm going to say that they're going to continue growing even up until the very last days of fall, where it starts to get super heavy frost, because they are extremely cold tolerant. And so I would not worry about planting them at any specific time. As soon as it is past the last frost date, I would recommend planting, because I think you're going to be just fine. Cucumbers don't like cold weather, but these are definitely not cucumbers. They are completely a breed all of their own. They're so awesome. And definitely just make sure that if you have plants like I've got this kale here, just make sure you're ready to to kind of have them duke it out, because it can be very aggressive. And like I said, it's a very, very aggressive viner. And so if you try to plant stuff close together like I do, just be prepared for some stuff not to do as well, because it will choke it out. And I don't necessarily mind. I love these cucamelons here, and I got plenty of kale, so I'm not too worried. But in hindsight, I probably would have not planted the kale right here, because it's just, they're all going crazy. So there's some things to think about when you're planting your cucamelons next to some of your other crops, but I would recommend growing them. They are, like I said, so delicious, super unique, and you really can't find them in the store. I've seen them in a couple different farmers markets, and they're very expensive at the farmers market. So it's definitely a specialty crop that I think gets a lot of people's attention. And if you wanted to grow it for you know, for friends and family, I think you would definitely get them hooked on growing this super unique vegetable as well. And also, I do know personally a lot of very kind of upscale restaurants will search out people to grow these. And if you call them, you might even be able to get a little extra summer income. So I don't personally, but I know for a fact that there are quite a few around us that that have posted about wanting to buy Mexican Sour Gherkins, because not a lot of people grow them. It's just such a unique kind of unique culinary thing to have on your menu, but it's just something that not a lot of people grow. So anyways, give it a shot. Hopefully you all enjoyed this growing guide. I recommend going and checking out all of our other growing guides. We have so many over on MIgardener.com. Click that media tab, and it's going to pull up videos, and then that videos tab is going to drop down. It's going to have a bunch of different playlists, and one of those playlists is growing guides. Click that. There's like 25, 27 something, I've already lost count, growing guides, complete growing guides like this one, to walk you through every step of growing, every step of the way. Anyways, there you go. Hope you all are having a great day. Hope you all are growing big or going home. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel. I'll see ya. Bye.